Despite all the talk of pre-tournament favourites like World Cup holders France, I actually think Portugal have got a very good chance of picking up their third international trophy in the last 5 years, if you include Euro 2016 and the 2019 UEFA Nations League. So here is the starting lineup I think they'll be taking to this summer's Euros. Starting off in between the sticks, and despite the fact that Wolves, aka the Portugal of the Premier League, have had a pretty inconsistent season, it seems as though the Portuguese contingent in the Midlands is tried and trusted in the national team, and for that reason it looks like, especially in goal, Rui Patricio will be keeping his place. Now, that's not to say that Anthony Lopez isn't a fantastic other option, but it just seems that he hasn't quite been able to wrestle that number one spot permanently off Patricio, and for that reason I think the highly experienced goalkeeper will be in between the sticks this summer. On top of this, they've also got Jose Sá from Olympiacos, who provides a more than able third choice, although he hasn't received a cap just yet. Moving into the defence and to the right back spot, which belongs to one of 3 Manchester City players in this team, and it's not difficult to see why after the season that they've had. After a slow start to life at the Etihad, Pep Guardiola has turned Joao Cancelo into one of the best fullbacks of the modern era. We knew he had the athleticism, the ability on the ball and the defensive potential, but now you're seeing a tactically aware, versatile, confident fullback capable of helping this Portuguese team in all phases of the game. Of course, he's going to be a starter whether it's right back, his more favoured position, or at left back. And as for Ricardo Pereira, well, after such a shocking ACL injury and extensive recovery period, we haven't exactly seen the best of the Leicester fullback. I think he will go now that he's fit, but he won't be a starter. And on top of this, they've got Cedric Soares from Arsenal as a good backup too. Moving into centre-back, and the first centre-back is quite an obvious option. For anyone who's watched Manchester City this season, you'll know that the majority of their brilliant defensive performances have been down to one man in general, and that is Ruben Dias. He's not only been earmarked as the future captain of the Portugal team, but he's one of the leaders on the pitch already, so it makes complete and utter sense that he will be starting. In fact, he joins a long list of legendary Portuguese centre-backs over the last 10 years or so. And in fact, one of those may still be starting alongside him at the tender age of 38. Now, for all the talk of Cristiano Ronaldo turning 36 and still doing the business, we've got to talk about Pepe, the king of shithousery. Now, when he left Real Madrid back in 2017, you thought he'd be taking one last big payday at Besiktas before the dream emotional return home to Porto. But a few years later, and he's still banging form. A few good seasons at Porto, including knocking Juventus out of the Champions League on their run to the quarter-finals, have kept Pepe in contention for this squad alongside the other elderly statesman in Jose Fonte. Now, compared to Pepe, he's a spring chicken at the age of 37 years old, but what he's done at Lille this season is they've contended very well with PSG for the Liga and title, and at the moment it looks like they are on their way to winning it. You've got to say it's an incredible season from him. He's been ever present in such a good defensive squad, and regardless of his age, that's pretty much enough to get into any national team. I really do believe that one of these two will be alongside Ruben Dias, but Pepe may just get the nod ahead of the slightly more internationally inexperienced Ruben Semedo and Domingos Duarte. At left back, and it's Rafael Guerreiro. Now, he's been given more of an attacking licence this season with Dortmund, and even though they've gone through some poor patches throughout the campaign where it looked like they weren't going to make the Champions League spaces, Guerreiro has still had a pretty good campaign from that left back spot. It's because of this and his experience with the national team that I can see him starting at left back. Having said that, one of his main competitors should certainly be worrying him. That is Nuno Mendes. The Sporting left back has had a brilliant first full season with the club, and if his early career is anything to go by, Guerreiro should definitely be worried about his place in the national team. Former Portuguese international Costinha, in fact, had very high praise for Mendes, saying that he's strong, he's physically and mentally brilliant, and he's very good on the ball, and he's still got so much time to develop. In fact, he also went on to say that he'd be surprised if Mendes was actually at Sporting within the next few years, considering how many big clubs are after his signature. That, combined with the fact that Guerreiro's still in fine form, basically means that Mario Rui might not get near the squad. His attitude has been called into question by Napoli manager Gennaro Gattuso over the last few years, and well, it looks like he may miss out altogether. Next up, and there's a really good choice for the defensive anchor position in the midfield in Danilo Pereira. Now, at club level with PSG, he is well aware of his job. He is very aware that he has a strict job to do and needs to hold the defence down whilst the attacking flair of Neymar, Mbappe, Icardi, Kane, Di Maria, and whoever else they've got in the squad goes forward and does the business. The same thing can be said for Portugal as well. You'll see later on in this video how stacked Portugal are in the attacking department, so the fact that he knows his job, plays it week in, week out, is really going to help them, especially with some of the tougher midfield battles. The fact that he can also slip back into the centre-back spot as well is an added bonus, and this versatility could help them out mid-game should they feel the need to change up ever so slightly with their tactics. On top of this, he's played far more than William Carvalho has for Real Betis this season, so I think Pereira would be starting. So next up is the second of this midfield three, and someone I can't exactly put my finger on them and say, yes, you are a definite starter. With the bigger games against the slightly tougher opponents in the past, Portugal have often played with Danilo Pereira, like we've mentioned, as a defensive midfielder, and Bruno Fernandes is the attacking midfielder, and this leaves one more spot open. This leaves a spot in the midfield open for the passer or the tempo dictator like Ruben Neves or João Moutinho. And on the flip side, they could go for a more dynamic box-to-box midfielder like Renato Sanchez. When they're against a weaker opponent and they feel like they may not need to do as much defending, that's when you'll see the likes of Neves, Moutinho and Sanchez, two of the three, playing together in their deep lying pivot along with Bruno Fernandes in the attacking area. But like I said before, they're in a very difficult campaign in the group of death alongside Hungary, Germany and France, so you could probably see Danilo Pereira getting more game time, and that means only one of Moutinho, Neves and Sanchez will be able to play. And of all of these three, I'm picking Ruben Neves. I think if you're going to go for a passer like João Moutinho, you might as well go for Neves, who's a bit younger and playing a little bit more frequently than Moutinho as at Wolves. As for Renato Sanchez, had a good season with Lille, but hasn't exactly been in top form, despite the fact that the club have been doing very well in Liga. The furthest forward of the midfield three has to be Bruno Fernandes. The midfield magician has completely transformed Manchester United since he came into the club, and he's got every right to feel confident about picking up the Player of the Season award at the end of the campaign. His link-up play with the other attacking midfielders and attackers in Portugal is going to be absolutely key to how well they perform this summer. I know he's sometimes played in a wider position for Portugal, but let's put him in his best position here, in the number 10 role. Alongside this, there's Sergio Oliveira, who's had a very good season with Porto, and Pedro Goncalves, who actually was Bruno Fernandes' replacement at Sporting. In fact, he's had such a good season that I'm sorry to say it, Sporting fans, but maybe Goncalves and Mendes could be leaving at the end of the season should enough money be offered. Right wing is next on the list, and the last of the three Manchester City players in this team alongside Cancelo and Ruben Dias, and it's no surprise that it's Bernardo Silva. In fact, there is so much attacking talent in Manchester that his performances often go under the radar, but not at international level. Silva is a world-class player, make no doubt about it. The thing is, at Manchester City, they have made it to the final of every single competition they've played this season, except for the FA Cup, where they made it to the semis. That, combined with the fact that it's already been a very congested fixture schedule, means that he couldn't possibly have played every single game. If he did, he'd probably be so tired that he'd miss the plane to the Euros altogether. Regardless of this, he is an undisputed starter for Portugal and has played in quite a few positions along the front line, which can only help in the Portuguese attack. His understudy will be Pedro Neto, who's had a very good couple of seasons, showing himself at Wolves to be in the making of an excellent player. And alongside this, there was also going to be Daniel Podence. However, it looks like injury towards the end of the season may rule him out of the competition altogether. On the left wing, and it was definitely one of the most difficult decisions to make in this squad. Do you pick Joao Felix, someone who's brilliant off the left cutting inside and can also swap positions with Ronaldo in the centre? Or do you pick Diogo Jota, someone who's brilliant on the left hand side, can also cut in and swap positions with Ronaldo in the centre? You can see why it's such a difficult choice. Both of them are brilliant for Atletico and Liverpool respectively, and I honestly think that this will come down to whether or not manager Fernando Santos is picking other players and a specific system to attack a certain team. It's going to come down on a match-by-match basis, and I think either one of them in the squad brings an excellent repertoire of skills and ability to this Portuguese side. You'll probably see that Joao Felix is playing a little bit more central, but given that Diogo Jota has more often than not replaced Firmino at Liverpool and not necessarily Mane, you could probably make a case for both of them being through the middle, but that's obviously only going to be one man. As for Diogo Jota, well, a little bit of injury here and there and rotation in Liverpool's squad, and the fact that he's being kept behind three world-class attackers in Mane, Salah and Firmino has meant that he hasn't exactly picked up the consistency and almost moulded himself into a super sub at Anfield. As for Joao Felix, his season hasn't exactly been consistent either, but he carries the mantle of being the future of Portugal's next generation. And well, if you're to leave him out, it's probably a bigger call than sidelining signing Diogo Jota. As for the other option is Goncalo Guedes, who has not been helped by Valencia's inconsistencies this season, not only in their league form, but also in the switch around in managers, which means that he's played through the middle, he's played out wide, he's played in different tactical systems, and he hasn't quite picked up any form or consistency heading into the summer. Into the central striking role, and who else? Nobody else. That's who. A 36-year-old Cristiano Ronaldo is still banging in the goals and showing that he's got what it takes to be one of the best players in Europe. Even though the Portuguese captain was injured pretty early on into the final in 2016 and spent the rest of the time trying to be player/manager, that does not mean he will not want to get to the final, have a big part to play in the final and win the tournament again this time around. This could potentially be Cristiano Ronaldo's last ever European Championships, considering he'll be 39 by the time the next one comes around. Of course, this is bad news for goal machine Andre Silva, who's had a brilliant season at Frankfurt, but I'd love to see the manager that takes Cristiano Ronaldo to a European Championship, potentially his last, and then leaves him on the bench. Although Juventus' season hasn't exactly gone to plan, Ronaldo still showed that he's got bags of ability and leadership both on and off the pitch, and he is such a vital cog in the Portuguese machine. He is captain as well. In fact, his place in the starting 11 is probably one of the most guaranteed places of any player in any team throughout the whole tournament. Like I mentioned before though, they are in the group of death with some tough opponents, so it'll be interesting to see how Cristiano Ronaldo can lead his team throughout that group and hopefully onto the knockout stages. So let me know where you think this Portugal team will finish, which changes you would have made, check out everything else we've got going on, and until next time, I will see you guys later.